Let's talk about all the books I've ever DNF'd, which means did not finish. Now the thing about me is if I hate a book and I don't finish it, I give it 1 star. And if I finish a book but I still hate it, I give it 2 stars. So all of my 1-star books on my Goodreads are basically all of my DNFs. I don't want to be a hater, but I can make a part 2 if you guys want to see all the books I've ever given 2 stars. But I have about 7 or 8 books that I DNF'd and gave 1 star for various reasons. And this might be a little controversial, but I want to get into it. So the first one is Twisted Games by Anna Huang. I read the first book, which is Twisted Love, I don't know, a couple years ago, and I already said this in a previous video, but I did not like this book. I thought it was way overhyped. I didn't feel the chemistry. I hated both the characters. Ava was super annoying. Alex was an idiot. Like, he was not a good hero at all. I didn't like him. I didn't like what he did. Then he, like, I think sang a song at the end to try to make up for things that he did. I was just like pissed at him the entire time. Now I did finish that book, but I started the sequel, Twisted Games, because everyone said it was better than the first one. I had to give it a second shot, and so I wanted to, get back into it. This one follows Rise and Bridget, and it's a princess bodyguard romance, which in concept should work really well for me, but maybe it's just this author's writing style. I did not like this. I thought Bridget was a brat. I thought Rise was full of himself. I, again, just hated the characters. And I'm such a character reader that if I don't like the characters, I'm not gonna like the book. Even if it has an amazing plot to it, I'm just not gonna like it because I really connect to the characters more than anything else. So I didn't finish this book. I DNF'd it at like, I don't know, 20-25%. I just knew I wasn't going to enjoy it, so I didn't want to put myself through finishing it. A lot of people love this book, and if you like it, don't worry, I'm not going to like judge you for it, but just for me, this was not my cup of tea. I will not be reading the rest of this series. And I know that Anna Huang does have a second series, but I'm really hesitant on starting that one too, because just so far it's just been 2 L's for me, so I don't want to put myself through something if it's just her writing style that's really the problem, The next book is Forever Never by Lucy Score. This is my first and only Lucy Score book that I've read, but can you really count it as read if I didn't finish it? I did get really far in this. I want to say I got like 65-70% of the way through this before I DNF'd it, but my main problem was, number one, this was way too long of a book. Let me look up how many pages it was. Okay. It's 588 pages, which, okay, I've read way longer, trust, but this was just a romance, and it seems crazy to me that a romance story should last a whole 600 pages. Reading the synopsis, that is, it said it was just a romance, but when I got into the book, I realized there was actually more mystery elements into this, so maybe that does explain why it was so long, but I was still so bored, like halfway through. I feel like it was dragging on forever, and I was barely 65% of the way through the book. So this follows Brick and Remy. Remy is an artist, I'm pretty sure, and then Brick lives in a small town. I'm pretty sure they used to know each other, and then now it's like a second chance small town romance. It also says you don't fall for your brother's high school sweetheart, your boss's daughter, or your ex-wife's best friend, and Brick was all 3 of those to Remy, so it really looks like a very funny and interesting plot, but the problem I had with it was they got together relatively early in the book, so the romance part was already finished, and then the rest of the book was basically just going to be the mystery that was being solved. But not only was this not marketed as like a mystery book, I just didn't care enough about the characters. Like, at the beginning I was sort of interested, but then once they got together and other things started happening, I realized that I really don't connect to these characters at all because I don't care to finish the story and like solving the mystery. Overall, I think if the book was shorter, I probably would have finished it because it wasn't a terrible book. Let me know in the comments if you've read anything by Lucy Score that you recommend, because I'd be open to trying it hesitantly, but I don't know. We'll have to see. The next one is a quick one, and this is The Air He Breathes by Brittany Cherry. I don't know when I picked up this book, but it's on my list on Goodreads of DNFs. I just remember getting not far into this at all. I got like maybe 10% into it, but I was somehow grossed out. I don't really remember this one as much because it was a while ago and I barely remember picking it up, but I remember the main girl character, Emma, I liked her, but the main guy character, Tristan, for some reason I got so grossed out by him in like the first 10 pages, and I think he like kissed her really soon into the book, and I was like thrown off by that because I don't even know if she wanted to kiss him, and I was just like, it threw me for a loop. So I remember like immediately closing this book and not picking it up again, and have no intentions of picking it up again. What even is the premise of this book? Okay, it says that he's like it's one of those like he's a monster but I can fix him kind of books, which I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I'm into that, but I don't know, for some reason I could not get behind this because the way that he like came up in my head, what I remember, the way that he came up and like just violently grabbed her and kissed her, I was just like, I am not feeling this at all. So from what I got, I was done, so I put this one down immediately. The next book that I DNF'd was Dark Sunshine, and here's the thing about me. Okay, I'm not opposed to reading smut. In fact, if a book has good smut, I'm gonna pick it up. We have some fun over here. But also, I'm not reading a book purely for an entire book of smut. And when I picked up this book, I didn't realize that's probably what it was going to be. And then I soon realized, oh, that's what this book is going to be. So this follows main character Lenore, who lives in San Francisco, and she gets kidnapped by a vampire and taken to his vampire lair. And it's a lot of like feeding, sexual exploration, hunger, vampire things. And okay, let's be so fair, I'm not opposed to a premise like that, but I think there has to be something else to the book than just, you know, messing around in a vampire house for 300 pages. Again, I didn't get super far into this, so there could be a lot of like plot and interest behind this book, but from what I got at the beginning, I had no interest in reading the two of them. Basically, that's it. I just had no interest in them. I didn't feel like reading 300 pages of pure smut. I needed a little more oomph to my books sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. And I just didn't pick this one up again. So I dropped this one. That's about it. If it sounds interesting to you, I've heard it has good ratings, but just for me, it was not the book at that time, and I haven't touched it since. Next is a book that I actually had to read for school, and if I'm being so honest, there are a lot of books that I've had to read for school that I've either DNF'd or almost DNF'd. The book I'm talking about right now is How to Read Literature Like a Professor. As most books that you have to read for school do, you don't finish them. But this one I specifically put as a DNF just because I really tried to read this because it was like a project we were doing on it, and I thought it had a lot of good information in it, but it just was, I was bored to tears. Like, I'm such a fiction reader that it's very hard for me to read nonfiction. And I read some before. I read Why Explain the Holocaust this year in university, and I finished that. I read a memoir last year, I finished that. I've definitely read some nonfiction like intermittently throughout the years, but this one just stands out as one that I DNF'd, so that one's here on the list. At the time, it was the last thing I wanted to pick up, so I DNF'd it. Also on the same vein, I also DNF'd Columbine by Dave Cullen. This is a story about the high school shooting in the school Columbine that happened within the past 15 years, I want to say. Now this one is a lot more intense because it's less of like a instructional nonfiction, more of like a nonfiction story. It follows multiple POVs throughout the couple of days leading up to the shooting, during the shooting, after. And I thought it was definitely an interesting book, and especially like in the context of school shootings. It's hard to read, but also like it's a good book to have knowledge about. This is an incredibly sad moment in American history, and I understand that. However, DNF'd it. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get through it. It was actually kind of a longer book for nonfiction for me. It was like 420 pages, and I just was not really interested in any of the characters. I mean, it was a sad thing to read about for sure, and I wanted people to be like safe and not killed in it, but after the shooting, I stopped reading it and I just didn't continue. This was also a book that I had to read for class in junior or senior year of high school, but I just did my project with the first half of the book and just didn't finish the second one. If you guys have to do like required reading for college or for school, you know what I'm talking about. Most times they just don't get finished, and that's just the long and short of it. Okay, the next one is a recent read. I read this, or started, I guess, this one in either March or April of this year, and that is Broken Rivalry by R.J. Angel. This one was incredibly disappointing. So I actually got about 65-70% of the way through this one before I DNF'd it, and I gave it 1 star because I was just like, no, no, no. This follows Poppy and Ethan, and they're at college together. Poppy is very poor. She has to support her mom and brothers at home. Ethan's very rich, and he like takes pity on her and like drives her home a lot, which isn't a terrible premise. Okay, I've definitely read books like that before that went well. It was just flat, like super flat the entire way. Poppy was such a cringy person. I hated like being in her head. Ethan was fine, but he also had like nothing to him. And then the thing that turned me off was they had a smut scene. I also read it in audiobook format because I got it as an ARC, and it was the first time of me like genuinely reading audiobook smut, like listening to it. Maybe if I was reading it paperback, I could have gotten through it and finished the book, but I think listening to an author describe the smut scene was the worst decision I've ever made in my entire life. It completely turned me off of reading smut scenes in audiobooks for like the rest of eternity. If I'm reading an audiobook right now and it gets to a scene, I will like pause it and then read the paperback if I have a chance later because it's just easier for me to digest. I feel like it's so awkward when an audiobook reader is reading it, but when you're reading it, it's fine. I don't know, maybe that's like a personal thing, but I could not get through this one. And also, it wasn't even the smut itself. It was a scene after the smut. It was so cringy. She like recalled everything to her friends who aren't in the same apartment as her, which I mean, if you're a girl's girl, you're gonna tell your friends, okay? I get it. But like the way she did it was so awkward. It was so awkward. oh my god, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It was like so cringe. I was like, girl, if that was me, I wouldn't be telling my friends all that. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, I could not get through this one. But it's okay, because even if I did finish it, I would have given it 2 stars anyway, because it was just not well written, didn't like the characters. It was just such a flop for me. So, Broken Rivalry, I unfortunately don't recommend. And the last book on this list is unfortunately one that I'm very sad about, because I wanted to love this book so much, and that is Now Open Your Eyes by Nicole Fiorina. Now, this is the 3rd book in one of my favorite series of all time, which is the Stay With Me series. The first 2 books, I think I both gave them 4 stars, if not like 4.5 stars. They are really fantastic books. These follow a sociopath named Mia, and she goes to this like mental hospital attached to a school for like sociopaths and stuff. And so she is in like a dormitory basically, but they have like medical attention people who need it. She meets this guy Oliver, and Oliver is so sweet and amazing and wonderful, and he feels too much. He's like always feeling a lot of emotion, but of course there's drama with like other people in the school, in the dormitories, things like that. It's just a really, really sad but really sweet story. I love the characters of this one, or at least the main characters in this book so much. That is the first 2 books in this series. But when it comes to the 3rd, Mia and Ollie finally leave like the school and they get out. And then the story takes a weird turn. It was focusing a lot more on Oliver's point of view than Mia's, I think, whereas the series starts with Mia's point of view. And then in this one, it goes down like a weird side road of like getting into gangs and mafia and drug dealing. And I'm like, what did this have to do with like relatively wholesome romances in a school? Even if it is like sociopath psych ward school, it was never this crazy. Like, was there drug usage before? Yes. Underage drinking, assault, things like that that definitely have like trigger warnings attached to them? Absolutely. But the way that Oliver was like getting into businesses that he had no place being in, I was annoyed at him, because I was like, not only are you ruining my reading experience, you're putting you and Mia's life at risk when you guys just like got out of a situation, you now are like literally free to do anything you want in the world, and you decide to do that. So I was definitely pissed at this book. So I unfortunately DNF'd it, and I don't think I'm gonna be picking it up. I will 100% pick up the first 2 books again. I think I've already reread the first one actually, just because I loved it so much, but I just can't talk about this 3rd one. So unfortunately this is not it for me. I don't want to be a hater all the time. I love talking about books that I actually like love and recommend, but sometimes I gotta be real with y'all, and that is I don't love everything I read, and these were the main books that I did not like. So comment below if you want a part 2. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, because I post about every 4 days. That's the posting schedule I'm on for the summer, and I will see you guys in the next one in just a few. Sending you so much love. Have a good one. Bye.